Yeah.
Welcome back to the Gridiron Expert, bringing you some of the best college football news, predictions, and analysis. And it is no surprise that the biggest game of conference championship weekend is coming from the best conference in the entire nation. At least that's what some want to believe. Georgia and LSU will be facing off in the SEC championship game, a top four showdown that has major college football playoff implications. Bigger implications more so for the Bulldogs than for the Tigers, that even if this game is lost by them, will probably still make the Final Four when the committee releases those teams on Selection Sunday. So as we have been doing all season long, we are here to break down this game of the week, by far the biggest game of conference championship weekend. Talking about the offensive side of the ball, the defensive side of the ball, and the keys for this game. Whether Georgia can upset the Tigers and make the college football playoff, or whether LSU will move to 13-0 heading into the playoff semifinals later on in December. So a little bit of history between the Tigers and the Bulldogs. Just a brief backstory on some recent meetings between these two. Just last year, the Bulldogs and the Tigers met down in Death Valley, where LSU defeated Georgia 36-16. That did not hurt Georgia in any way. They still made the SEC championship and had a very close loss to Alabama that, had they won, would have sent the Bulldogs once again to the college football playoff. So LSU got the best of them last year and got the best of them the last time these two teams met in the SEC championship game in 2011, where the Tigers won 42-10. They found themselves down 10-0, but Tyrann Mathieu, the Honey Badger, went off, especially on those punt returns that really gave LSU the spark of life that they needed. LSU finished that season undefeated before falling to Alabama in the national championship game. Right now, they are undefeated once again. This is the first time they have been undefeated since that 2011 season. So some key stats and some key matchups that you can go back and look at from history, but once again, that's all in the past. And for some of those, way in the past. It's a different LSU team, it's a different Georgia team, it's a different year, it's a different setting. But we're going to talk about the offense first, something that Georgia probably is a little concerned about going into this game, because they, of course, will be without wide receiver George Pickens for the first half. As we all know, he got involved in that fight against Georgia Tech last week. Tempers always flaring during rivalry week, and he has been suspended for this first half. DeAndre Swift, the leading rusher, the dynamic running back for Georgia, may not be 100% for this game as well. We know he's been battling some injuries. More than likely he will play, but if he's not 100%, that will definitely put a damper on this Georgia offense. Outside of that, though, the team has played well offensively. They've gotten a lot of hate since that South Carolina loss, being too conservative, not really being able to put up that many points, not being able to find their groove. But over the entire course of this season, Georgia is averaging 32.9 points per game. That's still a very, very good mark, especially in the SEC. But since that South Carolina loss, they're averaging just 27.3 points per game, including scoring 21 points or less 3 times. So over the past 6 games since that South Carolina loss, Georgia has failed to score more than 21 points 3 times. So there's still concerns on that offensive side of the ball. Obviously something that LSU does not have. We will address that here in a second, but you've got Jake Fromm leading the Bulldogs here, and that's going to be a key. You look at Jake Fromm, he's going to be the key in this game, because unlike LSU, Georgia and a lot of these Georgia players have experience in this situation. They have been to the SEC championship game before. None of these LSU players have been there. So you've got Jake Fromm, who has played in SEC title games, who has played in a national championship game. You have Kirby Smart, who has been there multiple times as a coordinator for Alabama and has been there a handful of times already as the head coach of Georgia. So Jake Fromm, who's put up over 2,300 yards and 21 touchdowns this season, could be a difference maker in this one, trying to exploit some weaknesses in the LSU secondary, but also because he has way more experience and way more composure in these big game situations. So that is something to watch out for in a game here. Many people are going to be talking about Joe Burrow and the differences there, but I don't think a lot of people are going to be talking about experience in the long run, something that Georgia certainly owns the edge. For LSU, though, offensively, we know what they're all about. They are led by the Heisman frontrunner in Joe Burrow, who's thrown for over 4,300 yards and 44 touchdowns this season. He's putting up video game-like numbers over the course of this season in the rugged SEC West, we should add. They are averaging 48.7 points per game, 560.4 yards per game, and 390 passing yards per game. So this LSU offense has been nearly unstoppable all season long. No one has really been able to figure out how to stop Joe Burrow. But the one key here for LSU, kind of like we mentioned with Jake Fromm in Georgia, the one key for them may be their running back and Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who just in the month of November has rushed for 550 yards and 8 touchdowns, and over the course of the entire season is averaging 6.8 yards per carry. That player alone, that running game alone is so huge for this LSU offense because it gives them a whole nother dimension. It shows that LSU, yes, our strength is passing the ball with Joe Burrow. But we do have a running game that can complement that and can make up for any slack or maybe just take a little pressure off of that passing game. Helaire is playing extremely well in the month of November, has played extremely well all season long, but can he keep up that success against one of the best defenses in the entire country with Georgia? They're allowing just 71 rushing yards per game. That's it. 71 rushing yards per game the Bulldogs are allowing, and they're only allowing 10.4 points per game. That's less than 2 touchdowns per game that the Bulldogs have allowed on the season. And of course, they have 3 shutouts this season, 2 of course coming over SEC opponents. So this defense for Georgia is the real deal. And really, this is going to be a battle between can LSU's offense get anything going against this Georgia defense, and vice versa, can Georgia's defense slow down or stop LSU's offense? That's going to be the biggest storyline in this one. This is arguably the toughest defense that LSU has faced this season. Some could make an argument for it being Auburn, a game that LSU only won by 3, but I would go out to say that Georgia's defense is the best and most difficult that LSU will have to face this year. For LSU on the defensive side of the ball, they are not getting talked about enough. Everybody's talking about Joe Burrow and this offense, this revolutionary offense, something that we haven't seen from LSU at least in the past decade, maybe even ever. But their defense is clicking at the right time, and that is huge in a game like this. It's huge that this LSU defense is stepping up and playing well in the month of November. Hopefully that will carry on into this championship game and then maybe into the college football playoff. They're allowing just 22.1 points per game. So statistically, LSU across the board not nearly as good as Georgia, but still solid. 22.1 points per game. They've allowed 20 points or less 7 times this season. So that, to me, is very impressive. While I don't have shutouts like Georgia does, they've allowed 20 points or less 7 times this season. That does impress me. And many people will say, yeah, but go look at how bad they played against Texas. Go look at how many points they allowed to Vanderbilt. Things can change in a span of just a few weeks. That Vanderbilt game, Texas game, way earlier in the season, way back in September. Things can change drastically in a matter of a few weeks. And I think we're seeing that here with this LSU defense in November, who closed the season against Texas A&M, winning that game 50-7, holding the Aggies to 169 total yards. Just 97 passing yards, 72 rushing yards. I don't care who you're playing. That statistic is extremely impressive. Georgia, on the other hand, they fared well against A&M, and we're not here to measure, oh, we did better against this team, we did better against that team, but people will do that. Georgia against Texas A&M allowed 275 passing yards to Texas A&M, but I will say stuffed the run against the Aggies, allowing -2 rushing yards. That's 273 total yards they allowed in that 19-13 win at home against the Aggies compared to the 50-7 win that LSU had at home against Texas A&M as well. Once again, what's in the past is in the past. It doesn't matter. All that matters for these two teams is what's going to take place in Atlanta this Saturday afternoon. We mentioned Georgia's defense, some strengths and weaknesses there. The biggest concern I have for LSU defensively is the fact they allow 124.5 rushing yards per game. Of course, they're more generous against the pass, but I'm not too worried about that right now. I'm more worried about the fact they're allowing nearly 130 rushing yards per game, and they're going up against DeAndre Swift that, yes, we mentioned might not be 100%, but even a DeAndre Swift at 90%, 85% is better than a handful of the current SEC running backs. So that is something that LSU needs to be aware of and needs to be prepared for in this key matchup, shutting down DeAndre Swift. So what are going to be the keys in this game? A lot of people, very quickly, you look at this game, you look at the way both teams have played, A lot of people out there are saying LSU's got this in the bag. LSU has got it won. They're going to blow Georgia out. They will roll into the college football playoff, and Georgia will once again miss out. The people that are saying that, in my opinion, do not know what they're talking about. Because I do not think that this game will be a blowout by any means. Once again, we mentioned that this is going to be a battle of LSU's offense against the Georgia defense, and then reverse that. And then you've got, can the Georgia offense keep up with the pace of the LSU offense? If this game turns into a high-scoring shootout, just back and forth, LSU strikes real quick, can Georgia answer quickly? Can they continue to compete at the fast-paced level that LSU likes to play at? The first key that we have for Georgia here is something that we mentioned at the beginning of the video, and that is to use their experience. Atlanta, first off, more of a home game for Georgia than it will be for the Tigers. Plenty of LSU fans will be there. They've been there before. Been a long time, but they have been there. But being at Atlanta, you can expect a lot of Bulldog fans there, more so than the Tigers. So that's going to help them right off the bat. But use that experience we talked about. The fact that Jake Fromm has been here before. The fact that Kirby Smart has been here before. The fact that a lot of these Bulldog players have been to an SEC championship game before. They were there last year, a game they probably should have won against Alabama. And they were there 2 years ago when they actually won the title over Auburn. So they've been there before, and that could give them a leg up in this type of game, at least right off the bat, maybe getting off to a fast start. Secondly, for Georgia, attack LSU with your ground game. Jake Fromm, I've said it before and I'll say it again. I think he's one of the better quarterbacks in the conference. I think he's a very elite passer. I think he's precise. I think he's accurate, even though he has missed a handful of easy throws he probably should have made over the past few weeks. But the biggest one here is to attack LSU with the ground games. I don't think Jake Fromm can do it all through the air by himself. But you get DeAndre Swift going. You get this Georgia ground game going, this rushing attack going against a very vulnerable LSU rushing defense that, yes, shut down Texas A&M last week, but over the course of the season has not been that great. Then Georgia will have major success offensively, and that will open up the passing game for an LSU passing defense that has not lived up to the expectations that they had coming into this season. So attack LSU with the ground game. Get DeAndre Swift going. Even if he's not 100%, you've got to use him as much as possible. And then third, for Georgia, control the tempo and slow down LSU. Control the tempo, slow down LSU. LSU likes to play fast. They can score in a matter of 3 plays. That's how quick they can score. They are quick, they are efficient, they are strong offensively. So Georgia needs to defensively control the tempo. Make LSU play down to Georgia's level. Make them play at Georgia's speed. It's like basketball. You hear people all the time. Make them play the game the way we want to do it. We're not going to play their game. Make them play ours. That's what Georgia has to do in this game. Control the tempo, slow it down, and have a very, very good first half. They have to have a strong first half. They have to come out strong, much like they did 8 years ago in 2011 when they jumped out to a 10-0 lead. Much like they did last year against Alabama, where they led practically the entire game before blowing it in the final minutes. That's what Georgia has to do. With the suspension they're going to have from Pickens, with a maybe beat-up DeAndre Swift, with a bunch of jitters across the board for LSU and Georgia, and practically a playoff play-in game for the Bulldogs, they need to start fast, because I do not think Georgia can come back from double digits in this game. I think if LSU gets up by double digits, the game will be over. And I do not think Georgia can win this game if it turns into a shootout. So those are the keys for the Bulldogs here. For LSU, the keys for them, once again, first off, just don't underestimate Georgia. I think a lot of people are doing that. I think a lot of the Bayou faithful down in Baton Rouge are underestimating the Dogs. I think they think it's going to be an easy win. They're going to rest their starters in the fourth quarter. And that's not going to happen. Don't underestimate them. But secondly, force Jake Fromm to win it. Force Jake Fromm to win it himself. If you take away DeAndre Swift, I have faith in LSU secondary, as bad as they have been in recent weeks. I have faith that they can kind of wake up in this game. And I think if you take away DeAndre Swift and practically make him a non-factor, it's going to make life very, very difficult for Jake Fromm and this Georgia offense. So that's what LSU needs to do. Take away the run and force Jake Fromm to try to win it solely by himself, something that I do not think he can do. Offensively for LSU, it's the exact same thing they've done all season. Just attack with Joe Burrow. Attack with Joe Burrow, get the ball moving through the air, and if you do that enough, you're going to set up the run with Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and he might be able to break off a few big-time runs against one of the stingiest rushing defenses in the entire country. And if you can't do that, if you can't get going on the ground, at least utilize them in the pass game. Georgia's got a solid pass rush. They've got a solid defense across the board. If you can get it out to Hilaire for a couple screens or some short yardage gains, that will be huge for LSU in this game. So what will happen in Atlanta on Saturday night, or Saturday afternoon, I should say? What's going to happen is LSU will win this game. I am picking the Tigers. I know a lot of my Bulldog viewers out there will not like that. They disagree with that. But LSU, in my opinion, will win this game. They've been nearly unstoppable all season long. And many will point at the fact that LSU only beat Auburn by 3, and maybe Georgia's defense is better than Auburn. So if that's the case, then LSU is going to struggle and they're going to lose. Maybe so, but I'm not buying it. LSU has played well all season long. Even Auburn, all they could do was slow down LSU. They couldn't stop them. All they could do was slow them down. They held them to 23, but it wasn't a win down in Death Valley. LSU win this game. Georgia slows down Joe Burrow and this LSU offense. Maybe something that a team like Ohio State or Clemson can watch in the college football playoff, kind of watch that film and try to beat the Tigers in the playoff. But I do not think Georgia has enough to win this game. I do not think they're going to be able to win this game through their defense. I certainly don't think they're going to be able to do it by their offense, especially if it turns into a shootout. LSU wins in a very close game down in Atlanta, advances to the college football playoff, and for the second straight year, Georgia falls in the SEC title game and just misses out on the coveted top 4. So guys, thank you for watching us here on YouTube. Make sure to like this video and check out everything we have for you in the description below. Look for that exclusive college football content over on Twitter and our website, and look for the exclusive offers that we can give you right over at BetNow just in time for the holiday season. And once again, guys, thank you so much for watching. Please continue to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you next time on the Gridiron Expert.